Cool. So we'll just give it a few minutes or moments.
Okay.
Oh, it's live. I was talking to the live. You're funny. Cool. Hi, Carissa. Oh, a year ago, Carissa and I were getting ready to finally hang out. I'm just giving it a few moments before I get fully set. Thank you, James. I appreciate you very much. Okay, fun. Very fun. Okay. I don't want to wait too many minutes. Hi, Lil. I love how much you're baking lately. Like, I love this baking lily. Like, this is a lot of fun. I don't know if it is for anyone else, but it is for me. Oh, okay. Adjustment of the lights. All right. So I'm just going to give it one more minute. Hi, Jessie. Oh, thank you, Carissa. I appreciate that. I am also excited for this live. So I don't think I want to wait anymore. So I'm just gonna get into it. So I did make that disclaimer that the conversation is going to include certain things that like could be trigger points for people, and I wanted to be as transparent with that as possible because I want people to understand that this is, I don't want to say not like it, these are serious things that have happened in, you know, my life, and they're serious things that happen in other people's lives. And so I think it's important to bring these topics here, which also it's taken me for what I'm going to speak upon in certain aspects. It's taken me all this time to really come to see that this is something that I want to talk about. I do really appreciate you guys being there for me, as in like an internet presence, being there for me to say that my old videos, that the way it got started was I just talked about spirituality and mental health. And then everyone was like, hey, I'd like to kind of know a little bit more about your journey. And I was really grateful to be able to bring those words to you guys because I've received so much understanding from your own journeys. So this is not me telling you what you should do, what you should not do. I'm not giving anyone any advice. I am literally speaking from my own journey, my own perspective. This has nothing to do with anyone else but me. It is all about me right now. I'm loving that for me. So with that being said, I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I started going to therapy when I was 15. I'm very blessed to have the therapist that I have. I know it can be really difficult to find a therapist that you move well with. Hi, beauty. That you like move well with and can really understand. But I think it's really important, and especially if you're ever going to go on medication, I'm not giving advice or anything. However, I really highly recommend you have a therapist. You should not be doing any of that alone. Even if you're a person who's like, I don't even want to go on meds. I highly suggest that you get a therapist anyway, because having a therapist is wonderful, and really beautiful for, hi Gab, and really beautiful for just everyday life. Because a therapist is somebody who can help you on some of that self-reflection, which is really beautiful. So with that being said, I started going to therapy when I was 15. I'm kind of going to give a little bit because I know some people were asking me in that little question box, like, what's my journey been like? So there are other videos that you can watch that are a bit more in depth. So I started going to therapy when I was 15. I suffered my first loss in my family, and that kind of sent me down a path of a lot of anxiety, and a lot of anger. I have gone to therapy before and never fully connected with any of them. I feel as though I healed everything on my own and just want a therapist to talk about the present. The more I go back and explain everything, the more it puts me back in a depressive state. And that's also valid. Like, that's also valid to be able to find somebody that you can just sit there and talk with about your present journey. But like I said, yeah, it can be really difficult. It can take 6 different therapists or more for people to find them, and that's not so easy, especially with insurances. If you're paying out of pocket, it can be really difficult. I just highly advise it, especially if you're gonna go on medication, because a lot's gonna come up, or a lot's gonna get numbed up, and it's really important to have like a supportive team. And having a therapist can be a really big support, because to be fully blunt, like, fuck psychiatrists. Like, they're really shitty. They don't do anything but like prescribe you pills and then not listen to you. I was lucky in the end. I had somebody who was like a nurse practitioner, and she like listened to the words that I said. And I remember saying to her, like, wow, it's crazy that you listen to me. And she's like, that's literally my job. And, that's really big. EMDR, if you're asking, if I've ever done EMDR therapy, yes, for many years. I also highly recommend that. But also, I've only ever done it with my therapist. I don't know if you can do that on your own. But I started doing EMDR therapy when I was 15, when I started going to therapy. And so I started going to therapy, and my therapist, the first words out of her mouth in my first session ever was how I got started on this journey. She was like, I think you should go to yoga. And so that started me off on this path. I went to a yoga class, and I literally never stopped. Because the mindfulness piece was such a big part of my life. So, fast forward, I was in therapy for a while, and I was in college, and I will admit this to anyone, I fucking love cocaine. Love to drink. I can't handle it now. I'm like a pussy when it comes to like drinking now, which is really cost effective. But I was really into, like, the people that I hung out with were very much so into that, like, party culture. So I didn't really have any self-awareness or self-reflection. And my therapist at the time, it was so funny because we would have conversations and she would bring up questions to me that I would just straight up ignore, because I knew that she understood what I was doing. I just didn't want to tell her what I was doing. So I would ignore her questions, and I would be drinking or smoking or whatever. on the other end of being on phone therapy with her. So it was finally at a certain point, really, these are real cliff notes to the beginning part of the story. I had a friend who was like at my place, and I looked at him. We were sitting on the floor, and I remember looking at him. I remember it clear as day. And I was like, I think I have a problem, and like, I need to go home. And I meant it on multiple levels. I meant like I had a mental problem. I had a substance problem. Like, I had a lot of problems that were happening. And that friend just told me that they had exactly what I needed. And I think within the emotional bandwidth that that person had at that time, they just got up and they got like a handle of like Kraken rum from the freezer. And I blacked out again that night, Danny blackouts. And so I am very grateful that I did have that period of going so fucking hard. Because I didn't really know how beautiful it would be for me to now be on the other side. Not to ever like shame that culture. But for me personally, that also really plays into my story. Kraken is one of my favorites. Honestly, I drank it a lot, and I can't even remember if I liked it or not, or if I just drank it because it was what was there. So finally at a certain point, I recognized that I was not doing anything with my life. Thank you. I realized I wasn't doing anything with my life, and I didn't really have a brain. The drinking and the substance abuse, the marijuana abuse, the cocaine abuse, smoked a lot of wax, because it was cost effective. I don't know how cost effective it was when I was abusing it the way I was. But all of that kind of led me into this like very apathetic, depressive state. I wasn't doing anything. I didn't really care about anything. Nothing necessarily mattered except for going out and like partying. Because that's what I was surrounded by. Everyone that I was surrounded by, the only thing that we like planned or did or looked forward to was that. So at that point, I kind of had this manic phase start to come in with the depression where like I'd be super on the fucking up and up, and then I would shoot back down and be really, really low. Also, thank you guys for being here. I love like seeing you guys write things to me. And so the mania was, I think, fueled by the people that I was also around as well, because I wanted to go out and be really fun and have a good time. But if I brought up, like any of my mental issues, it wasn't like I wasn't held. I wasn't seen. It was just, I brought something up. And, well, obviously, like, you need another shot. And, well, what can we do this weekend? There was never a conversation about it. And I am not mad at, like, any of that happened. I'm really glad that it happened because, like I said, if none of that would have happened, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And I'm glad that I had the journey that I did. So finally, after my therapist was, like, my therapist and my parents and, like, the closest people to me, were, you know, kind of like, you can't be living like this anymore. Yoga didn't work. Breath work didn't work. Sound healing didn't work. Going to kirtan didn't work. Literally all of the things that I used for years prior to going to college as like my self-help tools, it just wasn't working out anymore. I will describe it as I had a baby elephant sitting on my shoulders and my chest. And yeah, no one was holding me accountable because I remember one time I said, like, I think we have a drinking problem. And it was like I made the funniest joke in the world. There was no joke. So, that was kind of the energy that I was met with. But I would say, like, I feel like I have this baby elephant sitting on my chest, and he sits on my shoulders, and and he just stays there, like, all day, you know? And so I just became, like I said, very apathetic, very aloof. Depression, it's going to look different for everyone. And although there were certain points where I could hold myself up to go out and make the jokes and have fun, it didn't mean that I still wasn't feeling the baby elephant sitting on me, or it still didn't mean that as I was out, I was having these, like, what the fuck is the point of any of this? I was living a very unfulfilled life. I recognize that now, and that really played a role into it. But also, like, I went through that whole phase where I was like, there were certain parts of my life where I was suicidal, because that just also was a part of my journey, because nothing that I was doing was fulfilling. Nothing that I was doing was furthering me into what I truly wanted to do. And so I really appreciate you saying that. It is an awakening experience. Like, I've spoken about this before. My depression has blown my fucking mind. Like, it has been my greatest teacher. So with that being said, I went on to Paxil after trying a bunch of different medications. I want to further along because now we're at like 18 minutes. And that's just the beginning of it. So, okay, so that's the beginning. Now I'm going to move into, oh wait, I had things written down. Shit. Okay, so why I went on my meds? I went on my meds because I was not furthering along in life, and my team and myself, I knew, like, it didn't matter how many yoga classes I went to. I was completely in utter disconnect from my body. Breath work, none of those things that were mindful, I was actually present for, because I didn't have the capacity to release that little baby elephant sitting on me. And now, okay, let's go beep. 2020. That was me fast forwarding. So we come to 2020. Again, gonna talk shit about a psychiatrist for a minute. I started asking in 2019 if I could come off of my meds, and I was met with a lot of resistance. I was reluctant to go on meds because I knew that people were gonna, like, talk shit about me. Because, like, oh, you take meds? It, like, has that stigma around it. And even if other people weren't gonna talk shit about me, I felt like crappy about myself. So it was my own thing that I had to be like, well, I need this. Let me just, like, push through that wall. So then 2019, I asked the psychiatrist, and it wasn't until I got an absolutely wonderful nurse practitioner who was filling in for the psychiatrist that I explained how I was really ready to come off. And I didn't really, like, I wanted support on it. I didn't want it to be quick. I wanted to go slow. And that was the beginning of 2020. So in January of 2020, I moved from 50 milligrams, and then the start of COVID hit, and I was at 30 milligrams. And when COVID hit, I was like, fuck, I might not be able to be without my meds, because, like, everything was just so crazy with lockdown. So I was like, okay, let's pause on the weaning part and let's just stick with it. I was originally supposed to go to Nepal for the summer of 2020 because of coronavirus. Obviously, like, it, like, did not work out. Yes, I have. That's, like, a totally different conversation. We could literally have a whole live about that one. I appreciate that question, Jesse. So once the summer came, a friend of mine, and, oh wait, literally was on Zoloft, and after a month of being, my PCP was like, that's increased, and I felt like a zombie. Yeah, so I'm gonna get into why I really wanted to come off of the meds. So it helped me. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my medication. It took so much off of me. Like, genuinely helped me, and I'm so grateful that I went on when I did. But I did. I felt like I was emotional, but I felt like there were more emotions that needed to come out. I felt like I could feel things, but I wanted to feel more. I also smoked a fuck ton of weed. And so smoking with my antidepressants, when I finally got off my meds, I said to my therapist, I was like, I don't know what's going on with me. My brain just talks all day. And she was like, that's how the brain works. But because I was smoking so much weed and I also took antidepressants, I had the ability to just like, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to like chill with it. I'm like not going to think any further. So I recognized that I was able to control my mind, which in the beginning was good for me to move through. Again, like I had other modalities with therapy. And then summer came of 2020 and I really started weaning off because I connected with a friend that I worked with. I was one of her clients and decided that I would sit with ayahuasca. And so sitting with Aya, I had to get off my meds anyway, and I was already at 30 milligrams. I had already came down 20. So I started really praying to the grandmother spirit way before I actually met her for the first time. So, oh man, this is oh gosh. Okay, so this is a lot. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but like, oof. So realized that in the summer. Then came the fall and I weaned off more and more. And basically my weaning was so intentional. Then I went down to 20, then I went down to 10, and then I even did 5, and then I did 5 every other day. So I never experienced any brain zaps that people get. I never experienced anything of like, I didn't get any psychological issues from just like, if you just cold cut your meds, that's something that can happen. It can be very dangerous. Again, it can be really dangerous to just go on meds or come off meds. So not only working with a psychiatrist, because most of the time the psychiatrist sucks dick, have a therapist that you actually trust and love. Thank you. I should just take my time. I appreciate you. Okay, so now we're gonna move into what happened to me. I came off the meds and I sat with ayahuasca. And I remember making a video right after I had sat with ayahuasca because so many people asked me what my experience was like. And I'm not necessarily going to like go in depth into that, but a few things did occur right after that. So I was in a 4-year relationship, and when I sat with the medicine, I really came to terms that it was time for both of us to walk along different paths. And I had a path that, although we loved a lot of the same things and we had these similarities, I wasn't going to be able to move in the direction that I wanted to move. They weren't going to be able to move in the direction that they wanted to move. And it was honestly my first experience with ayahuasca. I drank the first night. It was super blissful. Drank the second night, and it was the most tumultuous experience of my entire life. It was a very difficult journey for me that evening. So when I came home, the first thing I did, because I knew I couldn't hold like on to that person any further, I was only holding on because I really genuinely was comfortable and have an unbelievable amount of love for that person still to today, and just didn't want to be without that love and that energy. But also knew that it was selfish for me to be holding on to that love and that energy. But also I met that person like 5 or 6 months into when I started going on my medication. So it was almost like they were an extension of my medication. So I came home from my retreat weekend, and I ended that 4-year relationship, and that was really difficult. But then 4 days later, that partner and I found out that we were pregnant. And now we had just, said, okay, this is it. We just broke up. Where do you see yourself in a year and in 5 years? Where do I see myself in a year, 5 years? And now we had this to sit with. I love you too. And so I had just came off of my medication. Coronavirus was a thing for a year. And after breaking off this 4-year long partnership, we found out that we were pregnant. And that is something that I'm really grateful that I'm able to speak about now, because a lot of people don't necessarily talk about it. And I've been so blessed and thankful to be in communities and circles lately where so many other women and beautiful beings have held me up, and not even necessarily women, where men have also came to me and been like, I went through the same thing, not body wise, but like decision wise and spiritually wise and energetic wise. And so I really was not integrated at all with my ayahuasca journey. I'm like 3 weeks off my antidepressants, and that partner and I made the decision to terminate the pregnancy last year on Christmas Eve. And so did that. That is something that I could just talk about in general for a while. I don't necessarily want to harp on it too much because I'm going to bring it back up in a little bit. But then my dog, as many of you know, so many of you knew Jeej, she had a tumor in her mouth that grew into her sinuses and all of like the cavities up here. So after we terminated the pregnancy, I had to make the decision to put my dog down. So the week after we terminated the pregnancy, or I guess, wow, it wasn't even a week after, it was like 4 or 5 days. We put my dog down. And then 2 days or 3 days after that, it was New Year's Eve. So I wanted to bring that piece of this story into it because this is really going to be important for everything else that I'm going to talk about. And I also wanted to normalize women terminating pregnancies, because for me, I felt very alone, even though I had friends that had went through it, and I didn't necessarily have the community like to hold me throughout that experience. And that person and I we had so much going on. I was freshly off meds. I just sat with ayahuasca. Like, there was just so many things that played into what we were going to do from here on out. So it's also very normal to terminate a pregnancy. And at this point, I can say I am so grateful that I had the experience that I had. And I'm going to expand on why I'm so grateful for the baby's energy and for the decision that partner and I made. So now that was the end of December. Then came January, and I got offered to come and volunteer at a plant medicine church that I was just going to go volunteer at, where I was originally just going to like clean buckets and like, clean people's purge and like hang out for the weekend, and so then that turned into, do you want to come back? Do you want to come back? Do you want to come back? And that was really beautiful. But escapism. I started using New Hampshire and this church with no name as a place to completely escape my problems. And when I say my problems, it was facing head on the major change my life underwent last December. Because going to New Hampshire, yes, I had to deal with it because I was sitting in ceremony and I was still, doing deeper work, but I didn't have to see my ex-partner. I didn't have to see my home. I didn't have to see the things that I knew. I didn't have to see any reminders. It was all new. These people I did not know. They were all new to me. This land was new to me. So it was really, it was really my escapism. So I ran away from my problems. Because now, in like January, February, it started to hit me like, why did I go off my meds? My brain thinks so much. It doesn't stop thinking. I'm sad. I'm happy. Is this the mania that I felt in 2015 and 2016? It was genuinely very difficult for me to conceptualize what was happening. And I don't really compartmentalize my emotions. If I need to sob, I sob in the moment. If I need to kind of have a freak out, I kind of have a freak out. If I need to move in odd ways, I move in the odd ways that make me feel good, which was great. But again, I was still disassociating from some of those things. So then I got wrapped up in this church, and I was being around ayahuasca is a very entrapping medicine. And I say entrapping because I felt very trapped in by it. And there was a medicine carrier that actually said that they had to leave the medicine community for a little while because it overtakes your life. She's a beautiful medicine, grandmother. However, it brings in a lot of your heart's fucking open. So there I am, my heart's open. These people are having life-changing experiences. I'm newly off meds. I just terminated a pregnancy that I literally cannot stop fucking thinking about. Every day I think about it. And I didn't know, what to do. So when the person who was in charge of this place was telling me, you should come back, and now you're going to be on the team here, and you're going to work here, and I was doing my breathwork classes that I usually just did for my clients, but there, which was fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm so grateful that I was able to share that breath work with so many, because I know it is a really beautiful healing modality. However, again, it was another form of escapism. I got to use working at this church as escapism. I got to use healing other people as escapism. When, like I said, I'm thinking about the baby every day. I'm thinking about my ex-partner every day. I'm confused at what I'm supposed to be feeling, what I'm not supposed to be feeling. Your breathwork is the best. Thank you, Jamie. And so I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad that I was able to give that breathwork there, but I was ignoring certain things in my own life. And so I then started to really recognize the honoring in the baby. So that allowed me to start bringing my own emotions into the space. I had a very difficult journey one night during a weekend where it was almost like I was giving birth. And it kind of slapped me in the face that I really had to sit with that. I needed to sit with what I was running away from. Not being in the place where all of this happened was, I don't want to say great. At the time, I thought it was great because I was like, oh my God, look, I'm expanding, I'm moving on, I'm doing all these things. But I had to face them. So, just for context, after coming off my meds, extremely erratic. The highs were high and the lows were lows. And around especially the medicine of ayahuasca, the highs were high and the lows were very, very low. So, what do you call it? With the highs and the lows coming so frequently because of ayahuasca and my own mental illness, it was hard to decipher, and I would constantly wish that I had my medication. I really want that to be known because I appreciate so much how people are like, you're so strong and you're so this and you're so that. But there was a day where I basically I had these flowers, these lilies planted for the baby's energy and like the baby's like soul and whatnot. And so that was my way to kind of like honor like, oh, that's right. I was on meds, and then I did come off my meds, and then I was with someone that I genuinely appreciated and loved and went through this traumatic experience with, and then my body went through this traumatic experience, and my whole life is different. So those flowers symbolized a lot for me, and they fell over one day. And I know it sounds kind of silly, because they just fell over. All I needed to do was replant them. It sounds so simple, but if you struggle with mental illness, you'll understand when I say I literally could not. I was on the floor sobbing uncontrollably. Like, I hated where I was. Like, I didn't like the environment of the place that I was in. I felt like a horrible mother. I felt like I should have never been a mother. I felt like I should have never came off my meds. I shouldn't have drank ayahuasca. I shouldn't have changed my life. I shouldn't be doing anything that I'm doing. That one pot falling over symbolized so much to me in the moment that I sat there for almost a full 3 hours and like cried. And just like could not come to terms with anything that was happening in my life. And in that moment, I really, really, really missed my medication because I just wanted my fucking brain to stop thinking. I just wanted anything to sit with me and stop it. And so it is not easy coming off of meds at all. But it also wasn't easy to do my own thing because I was in a place where the person that I was working for was like supportive, but not supportive. Like I said, there was like narcissism and manipulation between like, well, you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this. And it was like, there was no time for my mental health to be healing, which was so interesting because like it's supposed to be a community and a sanctuary and like a safe space, but it wasn't. So that person was aware of the termination of the pregnancy that I had went through in December, but like also still didn't care because like it's not theirs, which I totally understood that. But I'm super grateful for two absolutely wonderful people in my life who were there with me throughout the months where I was living in New Hampshire that like would talk to me about the baby every day and would cry with me about the baby if I needed it. And so the reason why I'm bringing that piece in when I'm talking about being off my meds for a year is I want someone to know that if they want to come off of their meds, it's possible, even if you go through a very traumatic life experience right after. So they would sit with me and people would listen to me talk about the baby, and I named the baby, and I had so much support on that. And I had so much support in this last recent understanding that like, I have to put myself first the way that if I was to be a mother, the mother would put the child first. I have the opportunity. Oh, I really appreciate you guys. I have the opportunity. I was given this opportunity to not only have the child as an angel and my dog, who passed on the few days after, both of them as angels for me to continue being off of my medication. But I had them as like almost reminders that like I'm strong. One of my favorite affirmations is I'm strong, I'm courageous, I can do whatever. I'm strong, I'm courageous, and I am whole all on my own. And I typically use that during ayahuasca ceremonies because it can get really intense. And I have to like remind myself like, in a few hours, this is going to be over and it's not going to be going on anymore. If you've drank, you understand what I'm saying. I love you, Liz. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. And so this is a huge part of me being off my meds for a year. Is the baby piece and the death piece and the rebirth piece that like coming off of my meds was the biggest rebirth that I could have ever understood. I have now understood what it means to really sit with myself to quiet my brain. And if I'm being completely honest, they are not quiet. They are just talking all of the time. And I still have a ways to go to work through that. So I don't want to make the live too long. I'm going to think, what were the questions? Am I proud of myself? For where I got was one of the questions. I'm extremely proud of myself, but I'm really proud of, and I know like I'm like focusing on this, but I'm really proud of the decision that that person and I made, because everything, although my life would have still changed drastically, I was reminded that like I have the opportunity to put myself first. So what helped you once you came off your meds? I'm struggling with mine big time. Okay, so coming off my meds, community. Having a community that will listen to you until you are blue in the face is so important. Asking them for like permission to dump is also important. You want to get consent before you're just like, I'm still working on that boundary. Having faith is also really important. So I know that these are like concepts almost, like having a community that you can go to, like physically go to and speak to and have people listen to you and validate you for how you are feeling. Staying in therapy. Therapy was the greatest thing ever. I am an energy worker, but I also go to energy workers. So getting energy work done. Plant medicine is a huge part of my life and has really allowed me to connect with my baby and my dog baby who has passed on, has really allowed me to cultivate this beautiful relationship with the metaphysical, but also having a daily practice, taking a shower. Full disclosure, it's fun. If you talk to people, they'll say that there's a Dan smell because I don't wear deodorant. And some of you are going to be like, ew, that's fucking gross. But I absolutely love that, like, my closest people and, like, my community members, I love when I get the text or somebody sees me for the first time in a while and they're like, oh, man, I missed your Dan smell. Pheromones. So having people that are going to support you for what you need, if it's a few days of you literally not showering and needing to sob and scream, the breath work that I do allows me to scream like a fucking animal and like be seen in it. Of course you miss my smell and I love you. And yeah, plant medicine. Girl, I love that. I'll connect to your crazy. My crazy is a part of me, and my depression and my anxiety and my mania, that is part of who I am. There are things that I can do to move through them, right? Like I said, the breath work that I do is screaming uncontrollably. I wild dance. That is not news to anyone. I go to other ceremonies. I sit and I learn from other teachers. I journal. I fucking journal. Like, writing down my morning thought was really big for me in the beginning because it would show me on the days where, like, I was like, yeah, I can definitely feel that today's going to be a good day. Like, I'm really optimistic and I'm happy to be alive. Or, wow, living fucking sucks and I wish I could end it. Why am I still doing it? And then I would know, like, okay, I'm going to need a little extra support. So I would call upon my family, evidently. My family, my community is my family. And I would call upon my family and they would listen, you know? But also I have a therapist and that is what I pay her to do, is to listen and walk me through the journey. I hope that's helpful. But also, like, my journey is going to look different from your journey. So, like, while dancing for you, if you're trying to move through getting off your meds, you might be like, why the fuck am I doing this? But you also might love it, like I do. Chanting for me, kirtan, chanting mantra. It is the quickest way for me to meditate. It is the quickest way for me to feel bliss and feel connected to God. And I'm so grateful that I came off my meds, because when I was on my meds, I knew that there was this barrier that I was like waiting to push through. but didn't and wasn't. Oh, you're welcome. What's your name? But I knew that there was this barrier that I needed to push through, and it was actually the barrier of the meds. The meds kept me like, so like, let's think about Dan, right? So like here we're gonna like, ooh, ooh, like that is kind of how my days flow. I still sit under my desk and sob sometimes. My desk is my safe space. So also really have a safe space, like safe spaces to go, yes, in your community, but like, where's your safe space in your home? That's also really important for me, is like being able to like trap myself under my desk when I'm really just not feeling it. And it's really difficult for me. So that's also been really beautiful. But I feel so blessed that December happened and I did get pregnant and I chose what I chose. And then my dog got sick. And again, I chose what I chose. And now I have these two beautiful parts of my heart with me every step that I go. So my connection to God and faith, I'm always thanking the fact that I have struggled with mental illness. And that today I am feeling good. Today I'm feeling just dandy, if you will. But there are many days that come in where I work on social media, so everybody sees what the fuck I do. I want to get off social media. I don't feel like I'm a good business owner. I don't feel like I'm a good friend, a good community member. I don't feel like I'm good at holding space. So, hi Steph. My meds haven't helped at all. They make me so foggy-headed. I'm interested in plant medicine, but psychosis, yes. Well, that's definitely, okay, so that's really something to bring in. I've actually, like, borderlined psychosis a few times, but we've had a discussion recently with a few people in my community about psychosis. So the reason why, if you were to sit with ayahuasca, they want you to come off of your meds, as far as my understanding, is the psychosis possibility. But also the conversation that I had with my community, it was more like, what can we really define psychosis as? So I definitely, if your meds are not working for you, again, like, cross your fingers, toes, and fucking titties that your psychiatrist is actually going to listen to you. Like I said, it took me until I got a nurse practitioner to actually help me wean off. But have that conversation with your team. Because plant medicine can be a really beautiful, beautiful tool. Like I said, I had that option. Like, I had all of those options. But the path that I did choose was to take my medication. And that was the path and is the path that I'm very, very thankful for. And now at this point, I get to use plant medicine and integrate all of that, which is really difficult. The integration process of using psychedelics while back and forth with the mental illness. But like I said, the decisions that I made last December, up until I think September, because I would have given birth in August. Totally forgot what month that was called. Up until September, I was so upset and angry about that, like, everything changed in my life. But at this point now, I could not be any more grateful for understanding that the fogginess that my meds did bring me also brought me to the clear-headedness that I have now. But it's also listening to your intuition and feeling into what you need. Because again, I'm not telling anybody to do anything. I appreciate that people even wanted to, like, know what it's been like. But there's no right or wrong way to come off your meds. And again, the reason why I shared the information that I shared about my own personal life was because I want people to know that it's possible to come off of your meds and undergo a very traumatic and difficult experience and process. It didn't help being around somebody that was narcissistic and manipulative while I was also trying to deal with like my own shit. It was very confusing, and it reminded me of the cloudiness and judgment on my meds, because sometimes I felt like there was a cloudiness and judgment. I don't know if anyone else has felt that way. But I'm glad that that person was narcissistic and manipulative, because now the people that I come into contact with that are narcissistic and or manipulative, I am understanding that once again, I have the power to, I'm strong, I'm courageous, and I'm whole on my own. Discern what they're saying to me and do what I have to do for me. But I don't think there were any, hold on, I'll look. Okay, so why did I come off of my meds? Like, what was the whole point? That was another question. Why I came off was because I knew that they weren't serving me anymore. When I originally went on them, they were in service to me. When I realized I was ready to come off, when I realized I was ready to come off, it was a huge decision that I had with everyone around me. So I just knew it. I asked my intuition. I asked my body. I knew I was ready. I knew I was ready to hold my own again. That elephant that I brought up, like, can't believe we've been on here for an hour. The elephant that I brought up that was on my chest and on my shoulders wasn't there anymore. Or, okay, that's a lie. He's still there. He's still there, but he moves. He gets big, he gets small. And so I knew that that was what I was ready for. And my team, my people that loved me, were also ready for that. But also I'm really glad that I chose to. So why? Because I was ready. Because I was ready. I was highly medicated from the age of 6. Oh my gosh. Kim, I love you and I'm so proud of you. And thank you, Steph. I really appreciate that. Like I said, in regards to that, your journey is going to look a lot different than mine coming off of medication. But the faith that I have because of the loss, the death was so beautiful around me. Everything was just dying. I've come to really love death. Like, genuinely, truly love the death that occurred, because change is the only constant, and the deaths that I came into contact with were huge changes and shifts in my life, and I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing if it wasn't for the shifts that occurred. I almost want to say, like, I wouldn't feel as whole as I do now. Had I not went on my meds, came off my meds, and got pregnant, terminated the pregnancy, and put my dog down. All of those things. That whole month of December is a huge part of what fuels me to continue holding space for others and being there for others, and then holding the space for myself and being there for myself. So freak out if you need to. Don't freak out if you don't want to. Suicide prevention hotline, they're the nicest people that I have ever communicated with, always. I use them as a resource all of the time. I think that I hope that I've covered everything. If you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out. Like, if you're comfortable to comment on the video as soon as it uploads, please feel free to do so. If you are not comfortable with it, that is totally okay. We love boundaries. Please feel free to message me. Don't Again, I am not giving anyone any advice to go on meds or come off meds or do plant medicine or not do plant medicine. I am not giving any advice as to get pregnant or terminate pregnancy. I am not giving any unsolicited advice or advice at all. I am super appreciative for all of you that have been here with me this hour. Thank you so very much. Thank you to the special team of people that have supported me, whether you've been on this journey with me from the beginning when I started going to therapy, because some of you were, or you've been on the journey with me since I started my medication, or you just entered my journey in the last year. I am so honored to know you and love you, and I know that I would not be the person that I am if you weren't in my life. So normalize mental illness, normalize the termination of pregnancy, normalize making your own decisions, normalize self-help, self-healing, and all of that other beautiful stuff. Love, love, love you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all very much. I hope you have a beautiful night and a wonderful journey. I'm always here for reflection. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Aho, amen, shanti. Take care, everyone. Bye.